Welcome to the IronEye. So for this particular episode, I'm not going to actually be working out. I'm going to be doing the stuff that I do pre-workout and the stuff I generally do for recovery, which is mobilizing the hell out of my face. Actually, as you can see right here, I'm kind of on my face. I'm working on my left pec. I've got the sandbag on my back because I need about 60 pounds, if not more, of intensity to be able to get into some of those stuck bits that I've got going on pretty much everywhere, because I'm lifting so consistently, so often, and I'm trying to lift as heavy as I can, so I need as much recovery as I can possibly get. So now I've switched over to, actually, now this is the left side. Excuse me. But I'm going ahead and working on my left side now. And basically what I'm doing is I'm just going up and down on each pec, and I'm bridging up with that right hand so that I can get that chunk right up underneath the armpit so that I can mobilize my arms. Now, this is obviously going to be a lot of upper body stuff that I'm working on for the moment. Here, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get my triceps. This happens to be a pull, what is it? I think it was a push day. Yeah, I ended up doing a bunch of squats and a bunch of bench presses and stuff like that. So now what I'm working on is my triceps and just up under the arms. It's kind of tricky having that weight because it's hard to grip the weight and at the same time be relaxed enough to get those muscles right up underneath the arms, but it can be done with some practice and some patience, obviously, because you really do have to be conscious of the feeling when you're working through all of these. So just a very simple setup here. I've got the foam roller on top of this bench because I needed to be up high in order for me to get my weight, or at least my body, to be the other end of this fulcrum. If you guys know what a swing is, if you've ever been on one, basically that foam roller is acting as the fulcrum so that I can use that weight to smash into my arm. Now I'm going to work on my biceps, a little bit easier on this one. It's just these positions are really awkward, but I absolutely need to do this because that shoulder in particular is really tight, and everything up and down that chain happens to be just bugging the hell out of me. I've been getting a lot of cracks and pops in that shoulder, so I'm working on loosening that up, softening up those tissues so that I can go ahead and load them up again when I do my workouts. I'm not doing any bicep curls or anything like that, but my biceps tend to come in pretty well. I think I'm probably depending on them too much, so I need to do some catch-up, do some bodybuilding stuff, and work on other accessory muscles in that area so that I can get a bigger bench, work on developing my push-ups, and ultimately what I really want to do is do some overhead presses, get that big, and then do some handstands. So now I'm switching over to my other arm. That would be the left this time, if I remember my sides. So I'm working on the left arm, doing pretty much the same thing. Not a lot of, often not a lot of tightness in this particular arm. I do notice that my left arm is I would call it my bulk carrying side. I tend to carry bigger things on my left arm, and since I've got more finer movement stuff going on my right, it tends to get tighter because more muscles are being recruited to do stuff like riding and other more delicate things in my right hand. Let's just put it that way. So my left arm doesn't really get all that tight. As a matter of fact, it's kind of lagging in strength, so I need to work on that. So now I've set up the squat stands and put some weight on there to get right there in my traps, because my left trap especially gets really, really tight, and I've noticed that I think it's actually a little bit shorter than my right. So I need to pay special attention to make sure that that side gets softened up and lengthened. So I'm going to go in and smash. I'm trying to get as solid of a base here so that I could smash that left side. And as you've noticed, I'm getting a little bit of distraction. I'm pulling my head aside. And at some point, I should try to brace my left arm so that I can get a lot more of a stretch. If you'll notice, I actually turned my toes in so that I can get a more solid base. I guess I didn't lock my my arm in. So now I've switched over to the right side to work on the same thing. This is a particularly tricky shoulder. It's actually really tight. And so this, on this particular arm, as you'll notice, I actually locked my arm back and I'm trying to hold it there. I'd prefer that I was able to lock that in a little bit better, but I'll take it. So now that I've got a lot of my upper body mobilized, I'm going to go in and do some dynamic stretching with this PVC pipe. So some of you may call these pass-throughs or dislocates, or I guess it's a variation on the Bergner warm-up. Basically what I'm trying to do is I'm actually pushing the bar apart. I'm pulling the bar apart. I don't know if that's proper terminology, but I'm trying to push the bar through as far back as I can to get a stretch, an active stretch actually in my pecs and in my shoulder. And then bringing it back. Keep those shoulders healthy and loose, because this can be a problem area for people as they get older. Lately, making these videos and all these other things, I've been spending a lot of time at the desk, so it's absolutely critical that I do this, because if I don't, I could very easily jack myself up. And if I want to go bigger with my lifts, I need to do this stuff, because I'm not the strongest when it comes to the bench press. I definitely need to work on some upper body stuff. I've been really leaning on my lower body, doing a lot of squats, doing a lot of deadlifts, but I haven't done much in the way of developing the upper body, so I need to get on that. Really, my bigger focus is I'd like to get a bigger chest, and particularly bigger delts, especially the rear delts. So I got to do stuff like this to make sure my shoulders are nice and healthy to be able to handle a lot more load when it comes to doing this stuff. So right now this is just nice and controlled. I'm trying to keep my left trap down, because like I said earlier, it is kind of short and tight. So I have to actively engage my left lat to keep that down while I'm doing these pass-throughs. So now I think I've added about 5 pounds onto the PVC pipe, so that I can get a little more of a stretch and be more engaged. I like the stretch because you can really feel it actually, and you have to work through that movement. And I noticed that this was a lot more intense than if I were doing this standing up. Standing up doesn't really take advantage of gravity too much, but in this position I noticed that it was way more aggressive, way more intense in the stretch. And I like this a lot better. I should do a ton more of this, because it's so good. It doesn't feel great in the moment, but it's oh so very good when it comes to doing this stuff. And keeping those shoulders nice and healthy. Do a couple more of those. I know it's not the most exciting thing, but just as boring as this was for me, it's going to be just about the same thing for you, especially if you want to keep this going over the long haul. Because you have to understand, like, when it comes to training, it has to be a long, drawn-out experience, because if you try to rush through it, you can injure yourself and then end up having to backpedal. I'm actually just coming off the heels of a really, really bad cold. It pretty much hit everybody that I know. I think it actually hit Omar, Isaf, and a whole bunch of other people, so it's really been going around and killing a whole bunch of people. It's pretty terrible. Apologize to those people that I actually ended up infecting. So very sorry. I wouldn't wish that on anyone, not even my enemies. It was just a terrible time, and I'm still recovering. But I kept pushing, so it just kind of extended the symptoms far longer. Here I am with, I believe, 10 pounds on the PVC pipe now, doing exactly the same thing. Like I said, I love the stretch right here that you feel in these, and it feels really, really crappy on my left side because I have to engage my lats and my rhomboids so that I can keep my trap down on that left side, keep it as far away from my ear as possible. I was taught that by Yogi Steve, and just keep it in a stable position as much as possible. So this is a pretty crappy, but it's one of those things where it's like, well, I just got to take the medicine. I know it's going to be good for me, and it'll help me improve. So now we're going to the floor. I'm trying to get that 60-pound bag onto my chest so that I can work my lats this time. I'm going to soften those guys up because I'm pretty adamant about bracing those things into your back, especially when doing deadlifts or pretty much any movements. The whole chain of muscles in your back ought to be tied together so that you can create a really solid core. God, I hate that word when it comes to your lifting. So here I am working that lat, and I'm switching over to the other side. This is really awkward, by the way. Honestly, I would prefer to have somebody just push me down, but I really can't hire anyone. I got Kyle from Mobility Moment to do this and help me out with this sometimes, but I don't have him at my disposal. I don't pay him nearly enough to just be my human weight. So now we are working some lower body stuff. What I'm doing, just like what I was doing with my traps earlier, is I've actually propped my right leg over onto my left knee so that I can get a bit of a stretch in that upper glute area, upper right glute. What this does is it puts my puts that leg in somewhat of a, that hip in somewhat of an external rotation, so that I can get a mild stretch back there, and then I can go in and press into the foam roller so that I can separate those tissues and soften them up at the same time. Not entirely sure if this is super effective, honestly, but at least in my personal experience, this has been very, very helpful. The only thing I need to do is to do this more consistently, because I have been adding a lot of volume to my training, so I need a ton of this as much as possible. Wilson Lamb, awesome dude that we met at Barbell Brigade, has this intense looking foam roller that's got studs on it. Might need one of those to get in a little bit deeper. This black foam roller that I have is not quite that intense, and if I could use maybe like a bigger lacrosse ball or something that could get in there a lot more and that was more intense, that would be great. But this is all I've got for now. Switched over to the left leg this time, doing the same thing, working that upper glute and sort of the glute med. Tossing that bag over because it's a bit of a nuisance. So, as you saw there, I was kind of testing out my flexibility. It was kind of nice. So here what I'm trying to do is, I don't really have anything to brace the band on. I've got this really thick band, but I've noticed that this T-bar that my dad put together is plenty of weight, and I can actually stick my foot on there and prop it back and hold the handles so that I can get a real good stretch in my hips. I also need this because, well, like I said, the workload has been really insane lately, and I'm just trying to kill myself with reps, chasing what seems to be an impossible 500-pound front squat for my particular body weight and size. I think I'm kind of coming to the realization that I may just have to put on some weight to do that, but that's alright. But I really got to work these hips because lately I sit a lot working on these videos, and writing stuff and doing all that, producing content. So in between training and this, I'm getting all sorts of destroyed. And then as you'll see, I can hold this for a while. It does feel good. It's shitty in the moment, but ultimately it does feel really, really good. It's very restorative. And this is probably the closest thing to meditation that I have, because I don't do it consistently enough. And I'm coming out of that. Switching over to the left side now. Doing pretty much the same thing. Nothing too exciting to talk about here. I've just got the band looped around the higher end on the outside of the glute, and then kind of looped down. It's kind of tricky with my my bowels right there in the way. Try not to pinch those, but I'll manage. So I'll kick that knee back, that left knee back as far as I can, get a stretch, and push into it a little bit. And what I'm doing with my left hand is I'm trying to make sure that I'm pushing down on my hips and not on my lower back, because that is a fairly common mistake for people when they get into the stretch, is they end up pushing on their lower back and stretching that, or putting it into hyperflexion, I guess I would say. No bueno. So now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to try and stretch my hamstrings, and I've braced the right leg, which is the one that's staying down, so that my hips don't move around too much. And what you're actually going to notice is right now I'm just kind of keeping it in a static position, and then next after that I'm going to swivel that around to kind of get different positions, different corners in that stretch to get my hamstrings, because them deadlifts are killing my legs. I've actually got a really nice pump in this video because I've been working out so much. Pretty awesome, I would say. Not the thing that I would normally want, but I'll take it. Aesthetically, I would rather be lean and strong. I kind of want to be sort of a, what do you call that? I can't remember. I want to be sneaky about it. I don't want to be particularly obviously big. Plus, I like my skinny jeans. So, I might have to give that up if I keep going up in numbers. So anyways, just to wrap up, a whole bunch of rolling. This is only about 18 minutes on this video, but this lasted for about an hour, almost an hour and a half of just me doing this before the workout, just because I've been just doing so much volume.